I remember that day in fragments, not like a memory, but like pieces of shattered glass, sharp and glittering, each shard reflecting something I wish I could forget. It was May 31st, late morning, and the city sky was the color of steel. From the street below, the glass tower looked less like a building and more like a monument, a declaration of wealth and power stretching into the clouds. Its mirrored panels reflected the bustling sidewalks, the yellow taxis, the suits rushing to work, as if mocking the chaos below. It wasn't just a skyscraper. It was Ethan Cole's legacy. Inside, the air was colder, sterile almost. You could smell the money here, not in the literal sense, but in the subtle perfume of ambition. Every polished surface, every marble column, every golden accent screamed of excess. People whispered instead of spoke. Phones vibrated instead of rang. This wasn't a lobby. It was a throne room. And then he appeared. Ethan Cole. He moved through that place like he owned not just the building, but the people inside it. Broad-shouldered, impeccably dressed, his $1,000 suit seemed to repel dust itself. His hair, perfectly styled, was silver at the temples, not from age, but from stress, a trophy he wore like armor. His face was handsome, but it wasn't kind. There was a tension to him, a cold efficiency that made people part like the Red Sea whenever he walked through a room. On that day, he was angry, not visibly at first. Ethan's anger was like a winter storm, silent, suffocating, and bone-deep. His assistants whispered nervously behind him, clutching iPads and folders like shields. He had just come from a board meeting, a brutal one, I later learned, that left him furious over a failing acquisition. The kind of fury that didn't stay contained for long. And that's when the boy appeared. He couldn't have been more than 8, maybe 9. He was small, soft-faced, with almond-shaped eyes that sparkled with innocence. His shirt was wrinkled, his jacket too big for him. He had Down syndrome, but he also had something else, a calmness, a gentleness that seemed almost out of place in that cold, glittering lobby. He wandered closer, curious. In his small hand was a toy car, chipped at the edges. Red paint faded from years of play. He saw the giant bouquet of lilies at the center of the lobby's marble desk and reached out, mesmerized by the brightness of the petals. No one stopped him. No one said a word. Until Ethan saw him, Ethan's steps froze, his icy blue eyes narrowing, his jaw clenched, and something uncoiled inside him. His voice, when it came, was sharp enough to cut through steel. "Get him away from me." The words ricocheted through the lobby. Conversations stopped. Phones went silent. A security guard shifted nervously but didn't move forward. The boy's hand froze in midair, his wide eyes flicking up to the man towering over him. Ethan stepped closer. "Who let him in here? Who's responsible for this?" His voice wasn't just angry, it was venomous. The boy flinched, clutching his toy car to his chest, his lips trembling. His mother, a woman in her mid-30s, with a tired face and a faded coat, rushed forward, her hands shaking as she scooped her son into her arms. I'm so sorry," she stammered, her voice trembling. "We were just—" "You don't belong here," Ethan barked, his voice booming off the marble walls. "Do you even know whose building this is? Get out now!" The boy buried his face in his mother's neck, his little fingers digging into her sleeve. Tears welled in his eyes, and confusion clouded his expression. He didn't understand the anger, the disgust. All he knew was fear. The mother nodded quickly, whispering apologies that Ethan didn't hear, or maybe he just didn't care to. She rushed toward the glass revolving doors, clutching her son tightly. The crowd in the lobby stood frozen, silent witnesses to cruelty, their heads bowed, their mouths shut. Ethan straightened his tie, adjusted his cufflinks, and muttered, "Unacceptable," under his breath before striding toward the elevator. The moment was over for him, forgotten, but not for everyone else. Because there are moments that etch themselves into the soul. No matter how powerful the man who tries to erase them, that boy's tears, his mother's humiliation, the stunned silence of the onlookers, it was all a spark. A single spark that would light a fire Ethan Cole could never control. He didn't know it yet. He couldn't have. But the boy he yelled at would soon hold his entire future in his tiny hands. Ethan Cole's name wasn't just a brand, it was a fortress. For decades, he'd built walls around himself so high, so impenetrable, that not even regret could climb over. He was the kind of man people described in numbers, not words. Net worth, $8.2 billion. Real estate holdings, 16 cities. Private jets, 3. Marriages, none. Mistakes, 0, if you asked him. And yet, for all his accomplishments, Ethan Cole was lonely. The kind of loneliness that didn't come from lack of company, but from an excess of power. People didn't talk to Ethan. They talked at him. They didn't see him. They saw opportunity. For years, he'd surrounded himself with polished surfaces, polite smiles, and empty conversations that sounded like transactions. The world had taught him early, love is a liability, and vulnerability is for the weak. So he became untouchable. That morning, as his driver ferried him through the city in a blacked-out Rolls-Royce, Ethan had already reviewed 12 contracts, signed off on 3 acquisitions, and fired 2 executives over video call. His life was a chess game. Every move calculated, every interaction transactional. To him, people weren't individuals. They were assets or obstacles. And that boy was an obstacle. He didn't know why the sight of that small child in his pristine lobby had set him off. Maybe it was the boy's laughter as he played with his toy car. Maybe it was the innocence that reminded Ethan of something he'd buried long ago. Or maybe it was simply because Ethan Cole couldn't tolerate chaos. In his world, there were rules, order, control. That boy was none of those things. But while Ethan's life was a fortress of glass and steel, the boy's life was something else entirely. The boy's name was Michael. He lived in a neighborhood Ethan Cole would never set foot in, a part of the city where the streets told stories in graffiti, and laughter often came from kids playing in cracked sidewalks rather than manicured parks. His mother, Alicia, worked 2 jobs, neither of them glamorous, both of them exhausting. She was the kind of woman who carried her weariness quietly, her smile a shield, her hands roughened from years of cleaning houses that weren't hers. Michael didn't notice her exhaustion. He saw her as a hero, because she was. Michael loved cars, not the shiny kind Ethan collected, but the kind he found in thrift stores and dollar bins, chipped and faded but magical in his hands. He would line them up on the floor of their tiny apartment, pretending the cracked linoleum was a racetrack. Every night, Alicia would sit with him, even if only for 10 minutes, watching him roll his cars back and forth, his joy contagious. He didn't have many friends. Kids at school didn't understand him. They saw his differences first, his Down syndrome, and kindness second if they saw it at all. But Michael didn't let that dim his spirit. He had his mother, his toy cars, and a heart full of curiosity. That's what led them to the glass tower that day. It wasn't some grand plan. They'd been downtown for Alicia's cleaning shift in an office nearby, and Michael had tugged her hand when he saw the skyscraper gleaming like a diamond against the gray sky. He wanted to see it up close. To him, it wasn't a monument to greed. It was a castle, a place from a storybook. So Alicia, tired but indulgent, had let him walk through the revolving doors. Just for a moment. Just to let him marvel at the grandeur. Neither of them knew who Ethan Cole was. Neither of them knew this was his castle. And they couldn't have known that walking into that building would set their lives on a path neither could escape. Back in his office, Ethan poured himself a glass of scotch. It wasn't even noon, but he told himself he deserved it. His assistant hovered nervously at the door, asking about quarterly reports, but he waved her off. He was still thinking about the boy. Something about that child gnawed at him, though he couldn't admit it. It wasn't guilt, not yet. Ethan didn't do guilt, but there was a flicker of something buried deep, something he hadn't felt since he was a boy himself. A memory, uninvited. A small voice. A cold house. A man yelling. And the sting of tears Ethan had sworn he'd never shed again. He took a sip of scotch and pushed the thought away. That was the past. And the past, like feelings, was weakness. Outside his office window, the city buzzed with life. Somewhere down there, that boy and his mother were probably already gone, forgotten by everyone else. Ethan convinced himself that was true, that they were just a moment, an interruption in his perfect day. But fate doesn't forget so easily. If only Ethan Cole had known that the boy he yelled at would become the single thread capable of unraveling his entire empire. Ethan Cole believed that power insulated him from consequences. For years, it had. When you're a billionaire, apologies are for other people. Regret is for those who can afford it. Ethan never looked back, never replayed moments in his mind. He crushed opposition, silenced rumors, and bought silence when necessary. But this time, something lingered. The memory of that boy clung to him like a ghost. Ethan found himself replaying the scene in his mind, even as he signed contracts and dismissed employees. The way the child had clutched his toy car, the way his mother's voice had trembled with shame, the way the lobby, his lobby, had fair. By the end of that week, his empire was no longer untouchable. Headlines screamed his name like a curse. Protesters gathered outside the glass tower, holding signs with Michael's face. "Kindness is priceless," one read. Another simply said, "Shame." Cameras swarmed the building. Reporters camped outside, waiting to catch Ethan's arrival, eager for a shot of the billionaire's sneer. His driver had to use back entrances to smuggle him in and out of his own building. Inside, the tension was palpable. Executives whispered in hallways. Assistants avoided eye contact. No one dared mention the video aloud, but its shadow clung to every conversation. For Ethan, it was suffocating. He had been through scandals before. A hostile takeover that left thousands unemployed. A leaked audio clip of him berating an employee. A divorce scandal from a marriage no one even knew he'd been in. But this was different. This wasn't about money or business or personal drama. This was about a child who had done nothing but smile and explore, and the world had decided Ethan was a monster. For the first time, Ethan didn't know how to fight back. He couldn't intimidate a child, couldn't sue innocence into silence, couldn't crush a mother's heartbreak beneath legal documents. The fortress was trembling. At home, Ethan wandered through his penthouse like a ghost. He hadn't been sleeping. His neatly pressed suits were now wrinkled, his immaculate hair disheveled. The world outside was collapsing, and so was he. But what haunted him most wasn't the headlines. It was that memory, that lobby, that boy, the way his toy car had glimmered in his tiny hand. Ethan poured himself another scotch, his fourth that night, and sat in front of the massive windows overlooking the city. The skyline stretched endlessly, each glowing window representing someone's life. Somewhere out there, that boy and his mother were living theirs. And for the first time in years, Ethan wondered if his empire had been worth it. All the money, all the power, all the isolation. What good was any of it if this was who he'd become? Across the city, Alicia was at the kitchen table again, flipping through envelopes, bills, medical letters, notices. Michael was healthy, but he had regular appointments, checkups, therapies, specialists. All of it cost money. Money she didn't have. She worked herself to exhaustion, cleaning apartments for people who wouldn't look her in the eye. When she thought of that man in the tower, the anger returned. His wealth could buy entire cities. Yet he'd looked at her son like he was an inconvenience. She tucked Michael into bed, kissed his forehead, and sat beside him until he drifted off. He clutched his toy car even in sleep, fingers curled tightly around it like it was his armor against the world. She whispered, "You're worth more than his entire building, baby. You're worth more than all of it." But deep down, fear gnawed at her. Fear of the world's cruelty. Fear of what would happen if Michael ever needed more than she could give. Ethan didn't know that. As he sat alone in his penthouse, his body was already betraying him. He'd been having chest pains for weeks, ignored them, pushed through them like he pushed through everything else. Stress was a part of his life. Whiskey dulled the edges. Power gave him a sense of invincibility. But on a stormy Tuesday night, that illusion shattered. Ethan collapsed in his penthouse office, clutching his chest. The glass of scotch shattered against the marble floor, amber liquid pooling around him as he gasped for breath. His assistant found him minutes later and called an ambulance. When Ethan woke up in the hospital, the world felt different. The sterile scent of antiseptic filled his nostrils. Machines beeped softly. A nurse adjusted his IV. And for the first time in decades, Ethan Cole wasn't in control. The doctor's words hit him like stones. "Mr. Cole, you've had a heart attack. You're lucky to be alive." But your heart is failing. Ethan stared at the ceiling, his jaw tightening. He'd built empires, outlasted rivals, bent the world to his will. But now, his own body was turning against him. The doctor's voice softened. You're going to need a transplant. Without it, you might not make it a year. A transplant. Ethan Cole, a man who had everything, now faced the one thing he couldn't buy: time. The narrator's voice deepens, like thunder rolling in. And this was the moment fate had been waiting for. Because somewhere in that same city, the boy Ethan had humiliated was about to become more than just a memory. He was about to become Ethan's only hope. For the first time in 30 years, Ethan Cole was powerless. He lay in a hospital bed, stripped of his $1,000 suits, his polished shoes, and the walls of glass and steel that had always shielded him from reality. He was no longer the billionaire whose name could open doors. He was just a man, a sick man. The room was quiet, except for the rhythmic beeping of the heart monitor. The curtains were drawn, but sunlight still leaked through, casting pale streaks across his face. He hated the smell of the place, antiseptic and fear. It clung to him like shame. Every movement hurt. His chest ached with a dull, relentless pressure. The doctor's words replayed over and over in his mind like a sentence. Your heart is failing. You need a transplant. Without one, your chances aren't good. For a man like Ethan Cole, mortality had always been an abstract concept. Other people died. Other people got sick. Not him. He was too strong, too rich, too careful. But now, stripped of power and fortune in this white-walled prison, he was just another name on a transplant list. And that terrified him. Visitors came in waves. Associates, assistants, lawyers. They came with flowers, with files, with promises to keep things under control. But Ethan could see the fear in their eyes. They didn't see him as invincible anymore. He was no longer the towering figure in the glass building. He was a frail man with wires attached to his chest. Even his board had started circling like vultures. He overheard whispered conversations about interim leadership, about stepping down. His name, once a weapon, was now a liability. And the public still hated him. The scandal hadn't gone away. If anything, the news of his heart failure only fueled the conversation. Online, people debated whether a man like Ethan Cole deserved sympathy. Others sneered, saying, he had no heart before, and now karma's catching up. Ethan read the headlines from his hospital bed. He told himself he didn't care, but every word cut deeper than the last. At night, when the hallways were quiet, Ethan thought about death. He'd spent a lifetime avoiding it, outrunning it, building empires as if wealth could cheat mortality. But now he was face to face with it, and it was closer than he'd ever imagined. The fear was suffocating. Not just fear of dying, but fear of dying alone. He had no wife, no children, no family. His life was a fortress he'd built brick by brick, only to realize he'd locked himself inside. And in the dark, he thought of the boy again. That face haunted him, wide, innocent eyes filled with confusion. The toy car clutched tightly in his little hand. The way he'd flinched at Ethan's voice. Ethan whispered to himself in the dark, why did I do that? He didn't know if he was asking the boy, his father, or God. Meanwhile, across the city, Alicia held Michael's hand as they walked home from school. His steps were slower now, his small body tired easily. He'd been born with a heart condition, something Alicia had known about since his first ultrasound. It was a shadow that had followed them both his entire life. Michael had always been brave. He smiled through doctor visits, surgeries, needles, but Alicia knew the truth. His heart was failing too. They were waiting for a donor, a match. She tried to prepare herself for the worst, but nothing could truly prepare a mother to lose her child. That night, she knelt beside Michael's bed as he slept, whispering prayers she wasn't sure anyone heard. She prayed for strength. She prayed for a miracle. And in the quiet darkness of their tiny apartment, she prayed that her son's heart would hold on just a little longer. The universe was moving silently, weaving their lives together again. Ethan's name was placed on the transplant list the next day. His medical team was aggressive, pushing him up the list due to his age, wealth, and connections. He was used to things going his way. He assumed a heart would come quickly. But it didn't. Weeks passed. His health declined rapidly. He grew pale and thin, his once powerful frame withering. He rarely left his hospital bed now. The media hounded him, portraying him as a fallen king. Some people pitied him. Most didn't. He spent his days staring out the hospital window, haunted by regrets he'd spent his entire life ignoring. Then, one evening, as a storm rolled over the city, the doctor entered his room with a somber look. "Mr. Cole," the doctor said softly, "we found a match." Ethan's breath caught. "A match?" The doctor nodded. "There's a child. A boy. He's very sick. His heart is viable." Ethan felt a strange chill creep through him. "A child?" The doctor hesitated, as if weighing his words. "Yes. His mother has consented to donate his organs if he doesn't make it through the night." Ethan's chest tightened, not from his failing heart, but from something else, something unfamiliar. Who is he?" Ethan whispered. The doctor handed him a file, a single sheet of paper. Ethan took it in trembling hands, scanning the name. Michael Carter. The boy he yelled at. The narrator's voice drops low, like a whisper of fate itself. And in that single moment, Ethan Cole's world stopped spinning. The boy he had humiliated, the boy whose innocence he'd crushed in a marble lobby, was about